just come up from the Valley of Elah, where the important battle between David and Goliath takes place. And the battle, of course, ends with David slinging the stones into the forehead of Goliath, and then he actually cuts off of his head. And at the end of chapter 1 of the book of Samuel, that is where we find out that the Philistine territory has actually extended all the way to Bet-shan in the north, because it ends with this revenge where the Philistines end up cutting off the head of Saul and of Jonathan and sending them all around the country and impaling their bodies on the walls of Bet-shan in a really grotesque gesture. So in 1 Samuel 17, at the end of that chapter, it has something really important, a very important detail that if you're reading the Bible in English, you may completely miss. So it actually says in verse 52, the slain Philistines fell down along the way to Sha'araim, even up to Gat and Ekron. So Gat and Ekron, we know, they're 2 of the 5 Philistine territories. And in fact, Philistine territory is just behind me here, going towards the coastal plain. So we're standing up above the coastal plain. Opposite the camera behind me is a place called Tel Azeka that is also mentioned in 1 Samuel 17 at the beginning of the story. But this place, Sha'araim, is really fascinating if we look at what it means in Hebrew. Sha'a means a gate. The place where I'm standing in is the gate or the entrance. I'm actually standing on top of the threshold that you can see here. In this little place here, you can see where the beam would have been holding the door or the gate in place. And in fact, there are 4 chambers, 2 on each side of the gate here. And there is a typical Judahite casemate wall going all the way around the city. And a casemate wall is simply where you have 2 parallel walls and you have rooms inside of the walls. So we're inside of a gate. And if you think about the gate, it is the most vulnerable place in the city. So you would expect in any given city that there would be only 1 gate. But there's something very important in this word, Sha'araim. The aim in Hebrew simply means plural. There is more than 1. So this is extraordinary. We've never found somewhere in the land of Israel that has more than 1 gate. But in this location, we found 2 gates. This proves to us that we are in biblical Sha'araim. So one of the gates is facing towards the west, towards Azeka. And in just a few minutes, we're going to go over to the other side of the Tel, and we're going to look towards Socho, which faces south. So these gates are very important places within the city, facing towards other cities that were part of the kingdom of Judah at that time. Now, this place was very heavily fortified because very close to here was the Philistine city of Gat, where giants were living, people who were more than 3 meters tall, according to the biblical narrative. And that is actually corroborated by the archaeology of this region. Now, are there any other proofs that it is Sha'araim? And what is the story of this place? Well, in fact, this place is absolutely fascinating because in Israel we have a couple of different schools of archaeology, one based in Tel Aviv, and that school often would like to negate the biblical account and tell us that it didn't take place, and tell us that King David and Solomon didn't exist as historical figures. Now, when we started to find out that they really did exist as historical figures and to find proof of that, the archaeologists had to change their narrative a little bit and to say, well, we didn't mean to say that they didn't exist, we just wanted to say that they didn't have physical places that they ruled from, or that they were like Bedouin or tribal chiefs. Well, in this place, we found so much evidence that that is not the case. Actually, what we discovered was a palace or administrative area that was used by King David in the years after he conquered Goliath and after he became king. We discovered incredible evidences of this, and one of the most striking was actually on the very last day of the excavation that took place here. It ended in 2017, and Yossi Garfinkel, who is not actually a religious person at all, and in fact is not known for biblical archaeology at all, in fact he's known for prehistoric archaeology, on the last day of the excavation he literally prayed, God, I need some concrete evidence of the dating of this place that I reign of King David. On the last day of the excavation, they discovered a pottery jar, and inside of that pottery jar they found olive pits, and olive pits can be carbon dated, and those olive pits were carbon dated to within 30 years of the reign of King David. So this was an astonishing proof that this site actually belongs to that time and that it connects to the biblical narrative of 1 Samuel 17. Other important findings in this area were the oldest Hebrew inscription ever found, the longest Proto-Canaanite inscription ever found, and that is a language that predates Hebrew. They also found something really extraordinary that has not been found anywhere else in the land, and these were little models of temples, and in fact they very closely fit the description of the Temple of Solomon. So the archaeologists asked themselves, is it possible that craftsmen presented these models to David and Solomon for them to choose and to say which type of temple they would like to have in Jerusalem? Some of them were made of clay, some of stone, and some of pottery. So there were several found up here, and they were astonishing in their similarity. So some archaeologists would say, well, it's very nice that you found this site, but what if it's Philistine? We're on the border here between Judah and Philistia. Why not say that it belongs to Gath and Ekron and all the Philistine towns? Well, what we did not discover up here at all are pig bones, and that is one of the most striking evidences that this is a place where Judahites or the Jewish people were living, because of course they would not eat pigs. What also was astonishingly lacking up here were any type of figurines that were used in worship. So the archaeologists would say that beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is the place called Biblical Sha'araim that is mentioned in 1 Samuel 7